Welcome to Rash's World, where you will hear prominent voices, psychoanalysts, psychologists, therapists, philosophers, and thought leaders talk about a variety of mental health concerns and problems, including how to deal with anxiety, depression, and chronic conditions, and how to become more resilient, find inner peace, be emotionally engaged in your personal and professional life, and just be your beautiful, authentic self. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Rash's World. Today we have a special guest. We have Dr. Carl Rothschild. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. So my first question is, how would you briefly describe yourself? What would you like our audience to know about yourself? And that could be anything, what you do, who you are, and so on, anything you like.
So do you mind if I go through my history then?
Brief, though, brief.
My brief history. Okay. Yeah. It was the early 1970s, and I was an undergraduate at a very good school in New York, and trying to decide what I wanted to do. And I decided, my friend and I started exploring chiropractic, which was not heard of in New York, let me tell you, back then. And I was contacting chiropractors all over the country, and I never found one that wasn't thrilled to be a chiropractor. And that's what I wanted. I wanted to do. Imagine I'm doing what I really wanted to do is to help people. I love that idea. Money was not my sole focus at all. And so there you are, helping people, but also looking forward to going to work. I mean, that was what I wanted. And so I graduated. Actually, I started my practice in 1978 as a chiropractor. And I was successful. I did a good job. We had a lot of help, people being helped. And then about 26 years ago, I was introduced to red light therapy. And that revolutionized everything for me. It took me to a whole nother level. So do you want me to go on? I know you said...
No, that's great. That's great. So you have a book about red light therapy too, yes. Illuminated Healing, Unraveling the Mysteries of Light Therapy. And so my first question is, how did you find out about this? How did that happen, that connection with the option of red light therapy?
So there I am, a chiropractor for about 20 years, thinking I know everything because I'm a wise guy from New York, Mm-hmm. And of all people, an orthopedic surgeon who is also a professor out of USC out here in California introduced me to a flashlight. He handed me this thing. Now, I knew this guy prior to him being involved with light therapy. And he hands me this thing and he says, take it to your office, treat your patients with it for a month and see if you notice any difference. And of course, me, again, knowing everything, figured that this was a bunch of hooey. I did, though, use it on a bunch of patients, and it revolutionized my practice. I mean, it changed everything for me. So this lady comes in with gum disease, and all we knew back then is that it couldn't hurt. Mm-hmm. We didn't know why it worked. They didn't know to what extent it could work. And since it couldn't hurt anybody, I just, okay, let's try your gum disease. And we helped her. And this guy with a kidney problem, and we helped him. And this guy came in with a ripped Achilles tendon that was horrific. I mean, it was 75% ripped. He needed surgery. The surgery was slated for Saturday, I believe. And so this was a Monday. So I said, well, let's treat you every day. And so this patient came in every day. And then when he went for the surgical review on Friday, he didn't need the surgery.
Wow.
And now he was starting to realize that this was pretty special. And on top of that, imagine that we were using equipment that was thousands of times weaker than what we are currently using. So to have that kind of level of success with something that was so much weaker than what we have now was incredible. And sticking with it over the years, that first device was a class 1, and we worked through a class 2, class 3, eventually class 4. And then about 13, 14 years ago, it was discovered by accident by a different company using red light only. Now, my company was using near infrared, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but this company was using red only, which we know is not nearly as healing as near infrared, but they're the ones that discovered that an element of red light could actually shrink fat cells. And I know in this country, United States, that there's almost nothing more popular than weight loss. And people are willing to do all kinds of crazy things to lose weight. They'll
Except
poison themselves,
exercise, I think.
they'll inject
Yeah.
themselves, they'll take poisonous pills and
Yeah.
drinks and potions and all kinds of stuff to lose weight. But now we're introducing the fact that we can use an element of red light that will do it in a very healthy way. And so nothing's getting damaged. There's no injury, nothing like, it's not like freezing the fat or boiling the fat or lasing the fat or ultrasonic cavity or radio frequency. None of those things. We're all about destroying fat cells. This process doesn't do that. Mm-hmm. And so if you pair it with a smart diet, the results are not subtle. They're beautiful. Now, a smart diet, by the way, is not a restrictive diet. It's not one where someone's, the word diet is a bad word because it means there's a beginning and there's an end to it. And if you have an end to it, that from that day it ends, then the person puts all their weight back on. Yeah. What we want to do is to change their life. It's about life-changing processes. Yeah. So they're going to be incorporating exercise, incorporating smart eating. That doesn't mean they never can eat anything good again. It just means they're going to emphasize the healthier things and try to stay as calorically neutral as possible. So I got heavily involved with that and started manufacturing that. Once we saw that fat loss could be also part of this process, then COVID hit. And our practitioners, we had hundreds of them at that point, wanted less physical contact between the patient and the provider. And so we incorporated this whole process of making this bed. Because with the bed, your person can get in and out by themselves, and you don't even need staff. In fact, if somebody asks, well, what does the bed cost? For a business, I tell them, you don't need staff. So you're saving yourself thousands of dollars right off the bat, more than the cost of the bed itself. So at any rate, we come out with the bed, we start delivering them to facilities, and the results that came back were unbelievable. So it wasn't just a replacement of what we had up to that point. The results were incredible. This person was having a heart attack once, if not twice a week, and it was happening over 12 or 13 years. I'd never heard of that before. So they had implanted a defibrillator in his chest that many years ago, 12 or 13 years ago. So that every time he died, it would zap him back to life. So by the time we met him 12, 13 years in, he was on his deathbed. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but he was really in terrible shape. He couldn't walk around the block. He used to be an athlete. He was depressed about it, and he was a mess. And a practitioner calls me up, should I even treat him? I don't want to have him have a heart attack in my facility. And I said, let's just treat him for 5 minutes and stay in the room the whole time. And that patient goes home that night. That was almost 2 years ago. Now he's had more treatment, but he's never had a heart attack since. Mm-hmm. No more heart attacks. Hundreds of heart attacks, no more heart attacks. And everything's come back to life. Every muscle, every tendon, every ligament, every bone, every joint, every organ, every gland, every tissue in his body has come back to life.
It's like regenerating in a way.
So his erectile dysfunction is gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like regenerating in a way, right? So that's healing and regenerating in that sense. So I find it very interesting.
I'm going to go over in a minute how it works. So
yeah, I want to get to that. But it's kind of interesting of how you basically used your patients at the beginning, at least, as guinea pigs, and then not meant in a negative way, because there were no side effects too. That with this is safe, as opposed to taking drugs and prescription and so on. Some of it has, all of it has negative side effects, but this doesn't really. And then because you saw those results, you were encouraged and you said, "Well, let's find out why." And then this is how the book came into being, right? Of like including your knowledge about it, your research, your learning.
Correct. I will tell you, when you said about using my patients as guinea pigs, that's what medicine's about. Both chiropractic, every patient that comes to your office. Yes. The reason why we call it a practice is because everybody's unique, everybody's different.
That's true.
And so we're going to use what has worked on the last 30 patients that have seemingly the same thing you have, but it's really kind of like maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But the beauty, as you said, with red light therapy is in the 50 years it's been studied, there's never been a recorded side effect. You couldn't hurt somebody with this stuff if you tried. And the only thing is an upside. It's either the worst that'll happen with anybody is nothing, but the positive possibilities are incredible.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
For me, that's a way of intermittent fasting, which I do, and so that again has lots of benefits, and there are really no side effects to speak of. I mean, it's some minor things, but again, that's like, but as your body adjusts, and then it's a lifelong practice, a lifestyle practice. So, which is
correct.
again what I like, instead of taking risks with things that we don't know. And currently, there are people are trying medications to lose weight, and yes, it looks promising, but we don't know what's going to come after. Right? What does the research show us later on? What are some of the effects it will have on our bodies and our minds?
Well, chiropractic and natural healing in general is about not putting anything in the body that doesn't belong there or
Mhm.
yanking anything out that does belong there or injuring anything. So
Yes.
this red light therapy is just perfect for natural healers, especially chiropractors. So the person that brought this to the United States was a medical doctor, and none of his colleagues followed along with him. He thought they would. But
Hmm.
I was a chiropractor, and exposed this to a lot of chiropractors, and they took to it like you can't believe, because it's all natural. Basically, what we're doing is we're using elements of sunlight, magnifying it many times and driving it into the body. So all we're taking is very natural processes and incorporating that and helping people to bring their body back to normal. We're not about putting any crazy things into their body. As I said, we don't have any side effects. And really, the contraindications are minimal. In other words, there are none. But there's a legal contraindication. That's with pregnant women.
Hmm.
Even though we know the lights are helpful for the mother and the fetus, if that baby comes out anything other than perfect, they're going to want to blame somebody for that. So I tell our practitioners, listen, with a pregnant woman, we'll just hold off. Let's not treat her. And then the day after delivery, then treat the heck out of her, because especially after C-section, she will recover so much faster and so much more completely if she gets in this red light bed. And again, the reason why the bed works so much better than anything before is because we're affecting every cell or many of the cells in the body. So we're affecting them from head to toe, left and right, front and back, and inside and out. So that's what makes this amazing difference here.
Hmm.
So if it's okay with you, I'd like to go over the mechanism. How does this crazy stuff work?
Before
And
we
there are
do, I'd
two.
like to see like what is it used for? Because I was looking at the list of things, and it's like it's a wide range of benefits that it has, of
I
things it
don't
can
look at
heal
it
and
that
so on.
way because, it would be sort of like, what is eating smart
Yeah,
helpful for? It's
yeah,
overall health. And what
yeah,
is exercising properly for? It's
yeah,
for overall health. And
yeah.
so red light therapy is not specific conditions, although there are,
Hmm.
but it's really about overall well-being and health. And then everything comes back to life. Everything
Hmm.
comes
Hmm.
back to health.
Hmm.
So I wouldn't say, even though we're having remarkable results with almost any condition out
Hmm.
there, you
Hmm.
would be hard pressed to find a condition that we haven't seen phenomenal results with. I mean,
Hmm.
Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, dementia,
Hmm. Hmm.
any autoimmune disease, including rheumatoid arthritis, severe psoriasis, in fact, any skin condition. And then add to all that is that it also helps with fat loss.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's incredible. That's why so involved with this stuff. That's
Hmm.
why my staff, knowing how crazy I are, they made this for me. Can you read that?
Get in the bed. Yeah.
That's my attitude. It's like, it can't hurt.
Yeah.
Get in the bed, try it for 6 times. It's not a toy, it's a
Yeah.
medical device.
Yeah.
So some of you might not be able to afford to have it in your home, but try it, so you use it for 6 visits. Look, a dose is 12 minutes. That's it.
Hmm.
Try
Hmm.
it for 6 visits. That's 3 times a week for 2 weeks. And at the end of the sixth visit, you review with the provider where you were when you started and where you are now. And if you don't see any change, one of two things must have happened. One, they forgot to plug the bed in, which is not likely. Or
Hmm.
two, you have such a rare disease or unhealthy process that either we need a little bit more visits or maybe it doesn't help you. But I hardly ever see anybody that we can't help, even mental issues, emotional issues. So we had had this lady that wrote, if this is how normal people feel every day, I can't believe I've been missing out all this time. And she was so highly depressed and miserable in her life, and now she's not. So it actually helps with joy. It actually helps with all the physical ailments when you start from the top of the head to the bottom of the feet. So it's not about just conditions, it's about overall well-being and health.
Yeah, and that fits in with my view of things, how, body, mind, spirit, this is all connected, and they're all one. So if you fix one part, if you find the harmony there, it's gonna get rid of all your diseases, right? Of all the things that are not in balance in your body, right? Kind of flushing it out and so on. But I also like the title of your book, Illuminated Healing, because again, this is about healing, and all of us need to be healed. That's really important to find that connection too. And light is quite fascinating because it was used in the past too, whether we're looking at when you talk about in your website about India, but also in like traditions and medical traditions too, where they use sunlight. I mean, everyone would say, yeah, this is good for you. I had Dr. Norman Rosenthal, who does light therapy for seasonal affective disorder, and the lack of light is again causing also a lot of imbalances and feelings of depression and so on, and physical conditions too. So I want to focus on light. So why we know why it's important, but how does it work here, the mechanism, as you wanted to talk about?
So I just want to finish up with what's behind me, just real quick. So the book, Illuminated Healing, I don't make a penny off of this. Any profit goes to charity. Go to Amazon and you can find it as a Kindle, a book, or you can actually listen to me for 8 hours on Audible. Then also, if you go to the website, trifectalight.com, and I will send you the show notes after this, but the website has a wealth of knowledge. But if you go to Contact Us, on the left side, if you want to do what I suggest, try it for 6 visits, then we need to find a location closest to you. We have hundreds of locations all over the country. We'll find the closest location to you, and hopefully you'll be able to use it for 6 visits, 3 times a week for 2 weeks. I'm not in practice. I'm not inviting you to my office, but we have offices all over the country. On the right side of that page, Contact Us page, is the possibility of buying it. If you have more health than wealth, if you have more wealth than health, in other words, you have more money than you have, and you're sickly, it makes sense. I'm 72 years old. I get in and out of that bed 3 times a week, and not because I have a particular ailment, but because I want to have the highest quality of well-being in my life for as long as I can. So we call it the fountain of youth, but you can call it whatever you want. But it will definitely help you to stay healthier longer. So on that right side of that Contact Us page, we'll give you the opportunity to either buy it as a private user, but the majority of purchases are with businesses. So we include 32 things with the purchase of the bed. And when you buy the bed, we're going to make sure that you're unbelievably successful. It's a business in a box, and it's a magnet that will drive more people to your facility than you can imagine. But also, all the people you already know are going to want desperately to get in this bed. I just talked to this lady who loved the bed, and she just in the conversation, as an aside, she said, "Oh, by the way, I referred 18 people to that office." Because what we know is that it's not satisfied patients that refer, it's excited patients. And you're never going to see more excited patients as you will with using red light therapy and a full body dose. Now, the last thing on behind me is the YouTube channel. If you really want to see some phenomenal videos, and they're done really, really well, go to the YouTube channel, which is Trifecta. You go to YouTube, put in Trifecta Light Official, and then you'll have access to all these over 120 really spectacular videos. Now, how does it work? There are 2 completely separate mechanisms. On this side is the mechanism of fat loss. And on this side is the mechanism of everything else. That's the healing, hair restoration, anything to do with healing, I'm going to talk about second. But let's talk about fat loss. What they discovered 12, 13 years ago was that there was an element of red light, and only red light, not any other color, not even, and none of the infrareds, just red light, that will actually change a fat cell wall to become more porous for about 24 hours. It's not permanent. It doesn't damage anything. And so that's the beauty of this, is that you're never going to injure somebody with this stuff. And what they found is that when you change the permeability and allow it to become more porous, since every cell in your body is under a little bit of pressure, some of that content of that fat cell, of the fat cells of the body, will leak out into the interstitial tissue or the surrounding tissue. And with our unique protocol, we move the fat away from the fat cells, eventually to the liver for use or elimination. And it works. It absolutely works. I mean, we do want to make sure the person's liver is in great shape. We want to make sure they don't screw everything up by getting drunk. You know, alcohol is probably the worst thing for a weight loss program, because alcohol, the way it's consumed, if you look it up, how it's metabolized like sugar, and it just screws up everything. But also, so is sugar a problem. So if you stay away from starch, or as much as you can, starchy carbohydrates, simple sugars, sodas, and alcohol. Those are the killers that screw up a weight loss program. So that's about weight loss. It's about red light. It's about, and we were the first company 13 years ago to integrate red for the fat loss component and some healing, and for the near infrared, which is the beautiful wavelength that helps in the results with fat loss of tightening the skin. You'll never see sagging skin or stretch mark when you combine red and near infrared together. So the person can lose the weight without being worried about any skin issues that usually coincide with that. So now let's talk about what's more important to me, the glorious, even though fat loss is amazing to attract more people to your office than anything else, I'm a healer, and I love the idea that we can heal tissue using near infrared and red light. Now, first of all, I want your audience to get familiar with scholar.google.com. It's the Google version. It's the scholar version of Google. And it looks just like Google, because it is by Google, but it's the scholarly version, scholar.google.com. And put in the word or phrase red light therapy. And you're going to see millions of entries there of double-blind studies, research papers, and articles about red light therapy. And it's amazing. So you can then put in red light therapy and then lupus or whatever you want to study or research, and find articles, PubMed, all kinds of stuff about red light therapy. And the beauty of Google Scholars, no one's paying to get higher ranked or anything like that. This is just a scholarly version. So Google's not as great as Google Scholar is. So anyhow, that's about that. So now let's get back to the healing process. It's not about a particular condition. It's about an overall health and well-being. So what happens, or what they've learned, and this has taken a while for them to understand, is that there's a reason why our bodies respond to the sun and sunlight. If you look around outside, you'll see these things called grass and trees and green stuff all over, because the light of the sun affects life on this planet all over the place. Certainly with plants and vegetables and fruits and all that stuff, but also the human being. We are affected by sunlight. We have in our body these things called chromophores. These are sensitive tissues to light, more so than other tissues in your body. So that's just a little bit of background, but now let's talk about how does this work? And what they found is that, well, first I want to talk to you about this keyword, mitochondria. Now, every part of your body is made up of tissue, every tissue is made up of cells, and every cell has one, well, at least when I went to school, we were taught there's one mitochondria in every cell of your body. That turns out to not be true. The heart, which has the highest demand for energy, and we're going to talk about why mitochondria is effective here. If the heart that has the highest demand for energy has over 5,000 mitochondria in every cell of the heart. And almost every other cell in your body also will have more than one mitochondria in each of them. So that mitochondria has become more obviously prevalent in your body than they ever thought before, so that it actually makes up 10% of your body weight. 10%. You got to think that through. There's bone, there's tissue, there's fluid in your body, there's all these things. And yet and still, 10% of your body weight is made up of the mitochondria. So now let's talk about what is the mitochondria. Well, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the body. It's the reason why you breathe oxygen and eat food, to create this important molecule called ATP. The ATP is the energy currency of your body. It's what your body needs to function. And I mean everything, every function in your body, every movement of your body, your brain, and every tissue thereafter relies on this ATP to give it energy. And guess what? One of the most important things that this ATP is involved with, healing. So if your body is suffering and you have a dysfunctional mitochondrial system, meaning you have less than the amount of ATP that your body needs, it will eventually lead to disease and death. Now, if we can find how to reverse that, wouldn't that be nice? And we have. It's called red light therapy. Now, when I talk about red light therapy, by the way, I'm talking about the combination of red and near infrared, that integration of red and near infrared together. When I say red light therapy, I'm talking about those two things. Now let's talk about the word infrared. The word infrared, there's no such word as just infrared. It's either far infrared or near infrared. Now, far infrared is a fancy way of having heat. When we in this country talk about the word infrared by itself, really we're talking about far infrared. It's just a fancy way of having heat. It really does not do anything much more than that. So the next day, there's not going to be any long-lasting changes. It's the near infrared, which we used to call cold laser or cold therapy. Not that it got cold, but it didn't get hot. So if you're having therapy in the world of red light therapy and it's getting hot, you know you're using the wrong stuff. It's using knockoff crap that comes from another country that sounds like China, and it's junk. And yet, you know, people will use that stuff, and unfortunately, it's a mistake. So at any rate, getting back to red light therapy and how it works with the healings, we talked about the mitochondria. What we didn't talk about is that there's an enzyme in each mitochondria that they didn't know about at one point. How the light is stimulating the mitochondria is because in the mitochondria is a chromophore called cytochrome C oxidase. A chromophore, again, is stimulated by certain elements of sun. And we've found out that near infrared is the most amazing way of stimulating the cytochrome C oxidase, which stimulates the mitochondria, which gets the ATP production to where it's supposed to be. Remember, in natural healing, we're never talking about excessive amounts of something. We're talking about bringing the body back to normal. And I'll tell you how chiropractors and natural healers look at health and well-being. We look at it as we're going to remove the interference. That's what chiropractic is really about. Getting the interference removed and then getting the heck out of the way and letting the innate intelligence of the body do its thing. So if you have a wound, let's say you have an arrow in your arm. Well, it would be helpful to pull that arrow out, sew up anything, clean out anything, and bandage it, and then get the heck out of the way and let the body do its thing. And that's what we're doing here. We're increasing the body's ability to heal itself. We're increasing the body's ability to function in general. And it includes the brain, it includes every tissue in your body. And so, yes, I'm crazy about this stuff. Yes, we're getting feedback about things that you would never have heard about. So we have a lady, I mean, I could go on and on about the different processes and the wonderful successes that we've seen. But did I talk to you about Arnett, who is having regular heart attacks?
Yeah. But why is it, if with all these benefits, why is it not accepted? I mean, and NASA is using it too. So I mean, that adds to the
Started with
reputation
NASA
that
and
started.
other
Yeah. But we have things like radiation therapy and for cancer and so on. So why is this something that's not like embraced by medical professionals more than it is now? What do you think is the hindrance there? How can we
It's not
get
what I think, it's what I know. So listen.
Okay, exactly. Yeah.
All
What
of
do you
you,
know?
listen carefully.
Yes.
I've been doing this for 47 something years.
Yeah.
It's about money.
Yeah.
If I can tell you on this hand, and it's an unfair situation, I'm going to go to this guy and say, look, I want to give you an option. You can make $30,000 doing the surgery or not. What would you like? Even subconsciously, what is he going to be thinking? Yeah, you know what? Who wants $30,000? I'd rather not get $30,000. It's nuts. The way healing and well-being, I'm a capitalist. I believe in rewarding if you work hard,
of course,
you make more money. And if you're not, you don't make as much. Capitalism's about that in general. But in the world of medicine, it's dangerous where you're having people that are making the decision about your health and well-being. And sometimes, and in many cases, what's going on here is money is winning out. So I'm telling you that there are surgeries that are being done. Listen, let's talk about hospitals. They look at our red light bed as a revenue killer, because I can guarantee you, if everybody you know on this, if everyone on this planet got in this bed 3 times a week for the rest of their lives, the amount of drugs needed, the amount of hospital stays needed, and the amount of surgeries needed would plummet. Not just drop a little bit, it would plummet. So who wants that? If you're in the world of making money, why would you want that? And this is what my life's been about from the time I started in chiropractic. Why would somebody do this instead of emphasizing that? And unfortunately, many times it's about money.
But especially you have an oath to keep up, as a doctor. And, I'm thinking this is just wrong. I mean, I understand in other parts, but not in medicine and science and helping people,
I have to give up on that, that's how I believed, because I was very naive and thinking that people would think the same way I did, but they don't. What are your medical specialists in the United States? What do they specialize in? They specialize in really knowing drugs very well. I don't. I mean, I know some, but I don't know them that well because I'm not recommending them. I would want people to do everything and anything they could to avoid drugs. And you know why? There's not a drug out there, including aspirin, including what we think of over the counter, people take it like they're candy. There's not a drug out there that doesn't have horrible side effects.
Of course. Yeah, I agree with that.
And so you always have to, I'm not saying I'm against drugs and I'm not against surgery. It's just maybe you might want to think about using natural healing first. I'm not saying if you've just been in a car accident and your arm's 20 feet away from your body, get to the hospital. Don't go to a chiropractor and get an adjustment. Get to the hospital. Thank God we have hospitals. Thank God we have surgery and drugs and things like that, but it needs to be more smartly incorporated in a person's life. Now, if you're on a whole series of drugs, look, I'm 72 years old, as I mentioned. I don't take anything except well-being stuff. I don't take drugs. I don't, those things that people got during COVID, I wouldn't allow anybody to stick anything in my body. Not at all. I did not get COVID because COVID didn't affect everybody the same way. You know why? It affected people that were already at risk. The people young, as a matter of fact, the kids didn't get COVID. It was the elderly and the obese and the sickly people. They're the ones that succumbed to COVID more than anybody else. They were already sick. And so keep yourself healthy. Keep yourself exactly. Again, it's about burning brightly, that candle that burns bright from the beginning all the way to the end and then sputters out and dies. That's what well-being in life is about. And that's what I'm recommending for you. Take care of yourself. You know why people don't take care of themselves mostly? It's because they're not scared enough. They're not. I've had tens of thousands of patients over the 47 years in practice. I've had 12 practices. And I want to tell you that people are not scared enough. So they're 30 years old and they come to me and say, I can get drunk every night. It doesn't have a long-term effect. And I'm thinking to myself, you have no idea what your 75-year-old self is telling you right now. It's crying right now because the last 20 years of your life are not going to be so much fun. So you're investing now at a younger age for your older age. That's what it's about. Taking care. That doesn't mean you never can have fun again.
But when it comes to money, we are more prudent, right? So we do invest and so on, but not in our health, which is again counterproductive. And also, with healing, though, I mean, healing is not profitable because once you're healed, you don't need any medical advice or consultation or medication and so on. So the answer I get often, when I have medical conditions, is that there is no cure. There's no cure for diabetes. There's no cure for sleep apnea and so on. And I'm thinking, if there is no cure, then you can keep me hooked on those machines, like in sleep apnea. So I said, screw that. I'm going to find a way. And I found different ways, not light therapy. But for me, it worked. And I don't need the machine anymore. I don't have sleep apnea anymore. So it's really that shift that we need, where people become more knowledgeable, more honest in many ways, of really looking at the facts. And these are the facts we're talking about, right? So looking at the facts, the science, and try it out. A sense of adventure too, instead of taking.
I wish you were
things.
right. You're not completely right, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
There's so much money. I don't know if you've ever stayed home and watched television.
Mhm.
Almost every other commercial, or many of the commercials of today, are going to tell you, not tell you, they're going to tell you to tell your doctor to prescribe that drug.
Which I don't understand. I mean, the doctor should already know, right?
You
Why
would
would
think
we
so,
tell them,
right?
right? Yeah. Who's the
But
expert
it must
here?
work, because there is so much money being poured into convincing you to convince your doctor of what you need, because he doesn't know what you need.
Exactly.
So if you were right, these commercials wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And if you were right, you know how much money pharmaceuticals make. It's unbelievable. I'm not against them making some money, but some of the money they make is astronomical. I want to give you an example, if you don't mind.
For sure.
There is an ulcerative colitis, which is horrible, horrible disease. And I'm not going to even go over the whole terrible symptoms that are involved, including pain and bleeding, diarrhea, and whatever. You can't leave your house, because from the time you have that urge, if you're not on the toilet within 1 minute, you're going to soil yourself. So these people have to wear diapers, whatever. So there's nothing supposedly that can be done for them. And they put them on a drug that has horrific side effects. But never mind that. How much do you think one dose? Now, the dose is a biologic, which means that it's given as an IV at a facility. You go to the facility, the IV drip happens. And how much do you think for that 1 hour drip, 1 hour dose, they charge the insurance company for that? Would you like to take a guess how much?
No idea. Yeah.
Well, come up with any number and add a zero to it. So go ahead, come up with a number.
Yeah, probably thousands. I don't know.
How much?
Thousands?
How about we would start off with 5,000, add a zero, $50,000 for 1 hour dose. That's what they bill the insurance. How, as a natural healer, how do you compete with that? You can't. The money that's involved with the kind of money that these guys can make is astronomical. And this is the beauty, if RFK Jr. can have
with no results, right? With no results to speak of, no cure, no healing.
I can tell you that the bleeding diarrhea that kept this person in the hospital got a little bit less.
Okay,
so they were able to leave the hospital.
Right. Yeah.
So I wouldn't say no results, but you know,
permanent results. I mean, where you a cure.
Oh yeah, you're hooked on that drug forever. So
that's it.
I don't even know where to go with that. I love taking care of people and helping them, and now that we can do it in such a healing way that has no side effects and basically no contraindications, it's amazing. It's amazing what you can do with something like that. So we went over the mechanism of fat loss. We went over the mechanism of healing and the mitochondria and the cytochrome C oxidase and all that stuff. And all I'm going to tell you is try it. If you have any ailment, look, if you're feeling great, I don't know if you're going to see a difference, but if you have an issue, try it for 6 visits. And the way to find out the location, again, is you go to the trifectalight.com website, go to the Contact Us page, and just put in there what your location is, and one of our staff members will find out the closest location to you. You try it for 6 visits. That's it. It's a 12-minute dose. That's all it is. And after 6 visits, I would be surprised if you don't see some difference.
Wonderful.
And like a guy that had Leber's hereditary optic neuropathy. Now, this guy was going blind. He had essentially multiple sclerosis of the retina. He's going blind. He's surrendering to the fact that he's going to go blind. But he also had a lot of other symptoms, headaches, including migraine headaches. He had insomnia and, of course, depression, and he's going to go blind. And he started using our red light therapy. And within a relatively short time, all the symptoms were gone. He still has the loss of eyesight that he had up to that point which was about 50%. He still had that. But what they saw, which they've never seen before, is it was no longer progressing.
Mm-hmm.
So what he lost is probably gone. But what we are able to do is to halt the progression. Same thing with multiple sclerosis by itself. It's eating away like a cavity at the nervous tissue. That which has already been eaten away, probably not going to grow that back. Nerves don't regenerate very well. And but we halt the progression. And that's the beauty of this. So just try it, no matter what you got. Yeah. Try it, even if it's a rare hereditary disease, try it.
Great. So, such an enlightening discussion here. Thank you so much, Dr. Dr. Carl Rothschild. You're founder and owner of Trifecta Light Technologies, and your book is, I can see in the background for those who watch the video, Illuminated Healing, Unraveling the Mysteries of Light Therapy. And you did bits of it here. Thank you so much for sharing that and sharing the science and also the results. And thank you so much for being on Rasha's World today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.